So let me get this straight. A movie opens to massive numbers. Theaters are packed. Families are showing up. Kids are losing their minds. The audience scores through the roof. Cinema scores strong. And the same industry that has spent the last several years whining that nobody goes to the movies anymore looks at one of the biggest crowd pleasers of the year and says, actually, this is terrible. That's where we are now. Because Super Mario Galaxy is doing exactly what Hollywood claims it wants movies to do. Put butts in seats, sell tickets, create word of mouth, and give theaters something to live on. And the critic class still found a way to act offended by it. And then because apparently normal bad takes were not enough, Grace Randolph stepped up to the plate to tell everyone that Bowser and Bowser Jr. basically represent the toxic manosphere. Bowser. Yeah, the giant fire-breathing turtle who has been kidnapping Peach since the Reagan administration. Yeah, we're absolutely talking about this today. What's going on, everybody? TGIF, it's Friday. Welcome back to The Critical Nerd, where we keep our expectations low and our receipts high. If you're new here, this channel is all about box office breakdowns, Hollywood nonsense, media spin, and calling it exactly like it is. So if that sounds like your kind of content, do me a favor, if you would, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss my next video. And today, I've got a perfect example of why so many people have completely stopped trusting mainstream entertainment critics. In fact, more people are going to the critical drinker nerdrotic than some of the mainstream critics, and I can't say as I blame them, because their reviews are more entertaining than the mainstream critics. Just my 2 cents. And that's because the story around the Super Mario Galaxy movie is not really that complicated. The audiences love it. Kids are engaged. Families are having fun. It's making a ton of money. And the critics, once again, are acting like they were promised The Godfather Part 2 starring an Italian plumber and a green dinosaur. So in this video, I'm going to break down the box office receipts, the critic meltdown, the Grace Randolph nonsense, the weird shipper backlash, and the much bigger reason this keeps happening every time a movie just tries to be fun instead of trying to lecture the audience. So let's get into it. Let's start where we always start on this channel, the receipts, because numbers do not care about a critic's little identity crisis. And the numbers here are loud. The Super Mario Galaxy movie came out this past Wednesday and immediately started flexing. It posted a huge opening. It outpaced the first movie on day one. It pulled strong audience scores. It landed an A- cinema score, which is one of the best indicators you can get for what actual paying customers think when they walk out of the theater. That's not internet discourse. That's not influencer spin. That's not some letterboxed activist trying to turn a cartoon into a sociology lecture. That's people leaving the theater saying, yeah, great, I had a good time. And honestly, that tracks with what we keep hearing over and over again. Packed screenings, good crowd energy, kids locked in, families responding exactly the way Nintendo and Illumination wanted them to. That alone tells you something important. This movie understood its audience. Now, is this movie some deep, layered, emotionally devastating work of art? No. And that's fine. Even people who like the movie admit it's thinner than the first one in some ways. Faster, more overloaded, and very much built around spectacle, references, color, and momentum rather than rich, dramatic storytelling. And that is a fair criticism. But you know what? That still doesn't make it a bad movie. It makes it a Mario movie. And that's the part critics keep refusing to understand. Nobody is buying a ticket to Super Mario Galaxy because they're hoping Mario finally gets a tortured 3-act emotional breakdown and a 29-minute monologue about existential despair. People are going because it's Mario. They want the visuals, they want the power-ups, they want the music, they want the references, they want the energy, they want Yoshi, they want Bowser, they want that Nintendo charm blown up on a giant screen. And from everything we've seen, the movie delivers exactly that. So right out of the gate, the disconnect is obvious. The audience seems to be grading the movie on what it promised to be. The critics are grading it on what they wish it had been. And those are not the same thing. And we need to talk about the critic side of this because that's where the comedy really kicks in. The critic score, as I'm recording this video, is right around 41%, while the audience score is right at 90%. Again, same story as the first movie, different day. And when you start reading some of the critic reactions, the same pattern keeps showing up. It's too shallow. It's too busy. It's all references. It's all fan service. It's not deep enough. It's just product. And my response to that is very simple. Yeah, it is. It's fan service. It's built for fans. It's built for kids. It's built for families. It's built to be colorful, fast, funny, and recognizable. That's not a flaw in itself. That's the assignment. There's a difference between criticizing a movie for failing at what it set out to do and criticizing it because you personally wanted it to be something else entirely. That's why so many of these reviews sound ridiculous. Because they read like critics showed up to a Mario sequel expecting some transcendent cinematic reinvention when the actual goal was to make a slick, crowd-pleasing Nintendo roller coaster. Oh, and by the way, even some people who enjoyed the movie admit the same thing. Yeah, the plot is simple. Yeah, it's a theme park ride, and yeah, it's not especially deep. But it's fun, visually appealing, full of recognizable game elements, and designed to entertain. That's a much more honest read than pretending the movie committed some cultural crime by not being prestige animation. This is why people are so fed up with critics, because this isn't just disagreement. It's a recurring pattern where critics seem almost annoyed when audiences respond positively to something that isn't part of the approved cultural menu. And that's why the comparison that keeps floating around hits so hard. According to critics, Ghostbusters 2016 is apparently a better movie than Super Mario Galaxy. Now just think about how insane that sounds. The same critical establishment that wanted everybody to fall in line behind one of the most notoriously rejected franchise reboots of the last decade is now looking down its nose at a movie audiences are clearly embracing. That's not credibility. That's parody. Now we need to talk about Grace Randolph because, wow. You know, every once in a while somebody gives a take so aggressively unserious that it almost becomes performance art. And that's what this feels like. According to Grace Randolph's commentary, Bowser and Bowser Jr. are apparently a little too evil. And somehow that starts drifting into toxic manosphere territory. Let me say that one more time for you in the back. Bowser, giant cartoon villain from Nintendo in a children's movie, is now being read as manosphere coded. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Bowser has been Bowser forever. It's in his job description. He's the villain. He kidnaps Peach. He causes problems. He breathes fire. He's ridiculous. He's theatrical. He's over the top. That's the bit. And that's always been the bit. And the funniest part is the contradiction. In the same breath, Bowser's being framed as too toxic while also being described as one of the standout or favorite characters. So, which is it? Is he a dangerous symbol of bad messaging? Or is he the funniest and most entertaining thing in the movie? You can't really have both and expect people to take the analysis seriously. What makes this even dumber is that one of the more interesting things in the movie is the Bowser and Bowser Jr. relationship. Bowser is trying to reform or reconnect, while Bowser Jr. is the little chaos gremlin trying to drag him right back into villain mode. That's not some secret Andrew Tate manifesto. It's a comedic father-son dynamic in a Nintendo movie. This is exactly the kind of over-analysis that makes normal people tune critics out. Because once you start telling people that Bowser is the cartoon face of the manosphere, you're not reviewing the movie anymore. You're projecting your own online obsessions onto a plumber movie and hoping nobody notices. And gotta say, people notice. That's why these takes get mocked so hard. Not because audiences can't handle criticism. They can. It's because audiences know the difference between criticism and self-parody. Now, there's another angle here that is not the main story, but is too bizarre not to mention. The shipper meltdown. One of the smaller but louder online backlash lanes came from the Peach and Rosalina twist, where the movie apparently makes them long-lost sisters. And that set off a whole side of the internet because it torpedoed a bunch of shipper headcanon and fan pairing nonsense. Now, here's where I want to be careful and fair. There is a legitimate criticism buried inside that discourse. Some fans feel tying Rosalina directly to Peach undercuts Rosalina's original standalone mystique and changes the character's backstory in a way they don't love. That is an actual story critique, and that's fair game. But that's very different from the bizarre meltdown behavior around fan shipping, identity projection, and people acting like Nintendo Kids franchise just personally attacked their emotional support fan fiction. And honestly, that whole subplot tells you a lot about the state of modern fandom. A lot of people no longer want to engage with characters as characters. They want every franchise to become a sandbox for their own personal online identity wars, shipping wars, fandom wars, and Tumblr tier emotional ownership battles. Nintendo clearly is not interested in playing that game. And that, frankly, is probably part of why Mario remains so durable. Nintendo protects the brand, they keep the characters recognizable, they keep the tone accessible, and they don't bend the whole franchise around niche internet factions. Compare that to what happened in other fandoms where shipping discourse and online activism started swallowing the actual story. That's when things get weird fast. So while I would not make the shipper angle the entire spine of the video, it absolutely works as a side segment because it reinforces the same larger point. A lot of people are trying to force modern internet neurosis onto a franchise that just wants to be fun, and Mario's not built for that. Now let's zoom out a little bit because this is the bigger issue. This is not really about one movie. This is about a critic and media culture that has become completely disconnected from the audience. The industry keeps saying theaters are struggling. Studios keep saying they need events. Exhibitors keep saying they need family turnout. Hollywood keeps asking why people are not showing up. And then a movie like this shows up, a bright, broad, accessible, recognizable family film, a movie kids actually want to see, a movie parents can take them to, a movie that doesn't feel like homework, a movie that doesn't stop every 10 minutes to wink at Twitter, a movie that actually understands brand identity. And what does part of the critic class do? They sneer at it. That is the disconnect. Because what the audience wants and what a certain layer of critics wants are no longer aligned. Audiences want entertainment. Critics increasingly want validation of their worldview. Audiences want recognizable characters acting like recognizable characters. Critics want reinterpretation, subversion, deconstruction, messaging, and the illusion of importance. Audiences want to have fun. Critics want to be impressed that the movie knows the correct theory words. And that is why the gap keeps growing. That is why the audience score and critic score keep splitting apart. That is why people trust friends, social media reactions, and box office patterns more than they trust a review aggregators. Because at some point, when the same people keep being wrong about what the audience values, they stop being tastemakers and start becoming background noise. And Mario exposes that brutally. Not because it's a masterpiece, not because it's flawless, not because it reinvents cinema, but because it does something Hollywood has become weirdly bad at doing. It entertains the people it was made for. That's it. That's the whole secret. Look, I'm not going to oversell this. This movie is fun, colorful, fan-pleasing spectacle with a thin plot, some overloaded sequel energy, and a few missed opportunities. That is a reasonable claim, and it's fair. But that is not the same thing as the apocalyptic critic hysteria we've been seeing. This is not the death of cinema. This is not some dangerous ideological text. This is not Bowser, Rise of the Manosphere. It's a Mario movie. A Mario movie that audiences seem to be enjoying. A Mario movie that is putting people in theaters. A Mario movie that critics once again completely misread because they keep expecting Nintendo to deliver art house redemption instead of a polished family crowd pleaser. And the funniest part of all this, the more the critics try to shame people out of liking it, the more they just prove why nobody listens to them anymore. So let me know what you think in the comments. Did Hollywood critics completely miss the point of the Super Mario Galaxy movie? Or are you more interested in the critic meltdown, the Grace Randolph nonsense, or the shipper backlash? And do you think this is another example of audiences and the entertainment press living in two totally different realities? If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share it out there with your friends and family. And as always, keep your expectations low and your receipts high. I'm the Critical Nerd, and I'll see you in the next one.